Hopefully the overhead video will be informative. Okay, so I'm gonna start out with 1.5 pounds of clay-ish. Everything's gonna start out sort of normal, and then you're gonna be like, okay, why are you telling me to do that? With the cylinders, you told me to do the exact opposite of that. It's because it's a bowl. It's a different form. It's a lot easier to make bowls. Everything kind of wants to go out when you're making a regular cylinder, so now I'm gonna let it go out. Okay, so try to avoid my camera there. Everything starts out sort of normal. And bring it up into a cone. Push it down. I bring up 2 cones usually. If you want to bring up a second cone, leave it pointed on the top, and it won't fold into itself as you bring it up. Okay, get it good and centered. Make sure you're really, really centered. This is pretty important because when we take it, the next class, we're gonna be taking the pieces. We're gonna be putting them upside down onto the wheel, and we're gonna be using trimming tools to remove clay. And I'll talk about that a little bit in a second. And in order for it to be easy to trim the foot, the top and the bottom, the lip and the foot, they need to be on parallel planes, okay? One of them can't be all wiggly and wobbly. You gotta have nice flat rim. Okay, so I'm gonna center it fairly normally. Okay, now I'm gonna drop the hole. When I drop the hole, I'm gonna leave it about 3/8 of an inch thick. We'll stop my wheel. This might be a little thick still. Okay, that's actually not too bad. It might be a hair on the thick side, but we wanna leave a little clay there, okay? Because we're gonna be removing some clay from underneath. Maybe I'll reach across here and grab this. So what we're looking for is when we throw the bowl, there'll be some extra clay here. And we're gonna remove that extra clay and create a foot ring on the piece. So we need the thickness of the wall, of the floor, or the wall and the floor of the piece, and then the height of the foot. Those are the 2 things that we need to add up to get the thickness of the floor, okay? My banana bowl. All right, so I just dropped the hole down just maybe 1/8 of an inch or so. Okay, with the cylinders, we kept our wrist low and we pulled straight back and we made sure we had a nice flat floor. What we're gonna do with the bowls is we're gonna open it up and we're gonna make it slightly curved. I like for my bowls to have a nice curve all the way through the bottom. You don't have to have that curve. You can, I have seen bowls where it comes down and stops and then it flattens out on the bottom. I prefer my curve to go all the way through. That way the spoon or fork or chopsticks or your fingers, if you're mixing something in the bowl, will go all the way down to the bottom and get whatever you need to get out of the bottom without running into a corner, okay? So when I open it, I'm gonna lift my fingers ever so slightly as I go out to the outside of the bowl. And so I'll have a little bit of a curve on the inside. And then when I compress it, I compress that curve into the floor. So it's slightly deeper in the middle than it is right next to the wall there, okay? So I'll make sure I get it good and compressed. Okay, we're gonna do our volcano. It doesn't need to be as exaggerated of a volcano as before. Okay, I'm gonna get my outside hand ready against the cylinder. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna swoop across the bottom interior, and when I get to my finger, I'm gonna start the pull. The reason for this is I want a continuous curve all the way through the floor to the wall. If I start right here, I'll have the curve and then a plateau, okay? So I wanna swoop across the bottom, and then I get to the wall, and then I pull. I'm gonna leave the rim a little thick, okay? As I pull this, as this starts to stretch out, this will stretch a little thinner, and it won't be quite as bulky once I get out to the width that I'm looking for. Now, just like when I make the first pull, every stage, if I'm trying to make a groove or if I'm trying to make a pull, I'm going to swoop across the bottom and I'm going to kind of pull up. And then this hand on the outside is going to kind of push in and down. Okay, that swoops across. This pushes in and down. I guess this is up and out. Let me get a little better there. All right, I remember how I was saying it's kind of the opposite of what you'd normally do with a cylinder. With a normal cylinder, you're gonna move your body towards the clay and you're gonna lift your hands up and in. Your inside hand kind of gives way so that the cylinder can go up and in. With a bowl, it's just the opposite. I'm actually gonna use my inside hand to bring the rim out a little bit. I'm gonna move away from the clay. So we're gonna wheel down, clay wet, start at the bottom, swoop across the floor, and then I'm gonna lean back a little bit. Okay, I wanna try to get kind of like almost like a cooling tower kind of shape. It has this kind of curve out like that. Again, swoop across the bottom, kind of pull up and out, and then down and in. Okay, wet the clay. Okay, swoop across the bottom, grow on the groove, and bring it up and out. All right, now I have my cylinder. I'm gonna go in, kind of make sure that I still have a nice curve in there. Looks like I've maintained it okay. If you're not, just go in there with your sponge and maybe like clean it up a little bit. Now I'm gonna take my wood knife, hold on to it really tight, push it up against the piece. I don't think you can see that from above with my camera, but I'm just removing a little bit of excess clay so I have kind of a straight line down to the wheel. That's actually gonna be approximately the width of my foot that I trim. So I'm saving myself a little bit of time by removing that excess clay. You wanna make sure that when you remove it in a round, that it's round when you do that so that it's really easy to center later. If it's like a weird shape, it's gonna be really difficult to center next time. Okay, on this particular type of bowl, I like to not remove the throw ring, so I'm gonna kind of add some wiggle to it a little bit, okay? So that it's a little bit irregular as I shape it, just so it's not quite so mechanical looking. Okay, I have my kidney rib. I like to have the end pointed into the piece, like the pointy end, and then I'm gonna hold on to it kind of like this. I want all of my fingers on there, but I don't want any fingers like in the way. I don't have my fingers like down like that. I have them kind of hidden behind the rib. So they're not like this, they're like that. I'm gonna put my non-dominant hand on the wheel. If the wheel is going counterclockwise, it's gonna be my left hand. If you have your wheel going clockwise, it's gonna be your right hand. You want the clay to be leaving your fingers. Okay, so this is leaving my fingers, this is going into my fingers right now. Okay, it's leaving my fingers with this hand. Hold on to my rib. I'm gonna pivot at my thumb and my elbow is gonna be doing the work. It's almost like I'm using my elbow as a lever, my arm as a lever. I rest the rib on these fingers, and this is kind of the fun part. I'm gonna drop my elbow down and then I'm gonna move the shape into the wheel. Okay. And sometimes I'll get like a little bit of a wiggle kind of happening, like a little weak spot. It's a lot easier to do this if you don't mess up the wall like I did right before I started doing that. I just like the way it looks. If you want to like compress the wall, it'll probably behave a lot more easily, or behave a lot better. Okay, just let the clay go through your left hand, rest that rib on their fingers, drop the rim down, and move the shape in. I'm at a point where I can see all of those kind of like divots in the sidewall. I'm just gonna kind of compress those out a little bit with my fingers. I'm trying to maintain that texture on the outside. It's kind of like I don't know. There's kind of like a finger mark texture on the outside. I'm pretty much to where I need to be as far as the width goes on my rim. I might just open up just a little bit more. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my rib around. Now the non-pointy end, I guess, is going to be facing down into the bowl. And I'm going to, instead of having my hand on the rim, I have my hand on my other hand, and I'm going to watch the piece right here and just keep a good grip on your rib. And as you get to right here, you actually need to kind of push down a little harder. And you go right through the middle, and you have a bowl. Piece of cake, right? What?
I'm nervous that like when I try to shape it that it just falls apart.
It's possible. It takes some practice, just like anything else. You know, your first one might die, and that's okay. Let's just do another one. Oh, I don't have my chamois. Can somebody hand me a chamois out of there?
Is that the piece of bacon?
Yeah, the piece of bacon. Yeah. Is there one that's wet still? No. I wonder, okay, there might be a wet one in there. If there's not a wet one in there, then the wet one got into the
No, there's not a wet one.
Oh, lovely. Okay, it's probably either in the bucket or it's in the,
drain?
it's either in the sink or in the bucket. So we'll find it eventually. Okay, and I'm just gonna smooth the rim out. Now, at this point, you probably just want to, you know, cut it off and slide it off. If your clay is kind of stiff or you left enough clay in the foot, what you can do is you can just kind of cut it off. I'm just gonna kind of use my fingers like that. Lift it up, set it down. And if you get some little bumps on the inside, you can push those out. Okay. Okay, that's a flared bowl. And you can go more flared than that, less flared than that, doesn't really matter. But the idea is pretty much the same. Okay, now I'm gonna do a rounded, kind of like chili bowl, like one that kind of comes in like that. All right, try to get my head over the camera. And up, push it down. You can see I'm using my leg and my body to bring that clay up. And I get this elbow up and over the clay to push it down. Okay, make sure again that you're really centered. If you're off center, your cylinder is going to be wobbly. If your cylinder is wobbly, then you're not going to have a level rim. Okay, I'm going to drop the hole. Again, I'm going to leave about 3/8 of an inch down at the bottom. Open it up into a curve. I'm going to do this one a little quicker so that it doesn't take too much of your time up today. Okay, do the volcano. Okay. As you go through the process, you do want to slow your wheel down just a little bit. So pushing up against the clay. And as you're watching the video, like if you go back and watch the video, like look at my hand position. Like that's kind of why I like to have this camera like pointed straight down, so you can see where my hand position is. You can see the shape of my arm, you know, a little bit better. Swoop across the bottom, get to the wall, grab and go. I'm gonna leave a good bit of clay in the rim here again. I'm gonna shape it into the shape that I like my rims. It's much like the mug rim, but a little different, I guess. A little bigger, a little thicker. Okay, swoop across, down and under, up and out. Now if you mess up the curve on the inside, you can kind of go in and like re-smooth the curve in there. Okay, swoop across the inside. Grab onto the clay and then lean your body back a little bit and let that clay kind of move out just a little bit. Even though we're doing a slightly different shape, my bowls all kind of start out with the same general shape, and then I go out from there. Okay. Compress the rim. So this one, oh yeah, first let's get rid of the clay. Bottom. Save this a little time, a little effort. Once we get it, so we can start trimming. Okay, this one I will compress the wall. Love that sound, don't you? No, it's a pretty horrible sound. Ah, that sound. And again, always scrape that one on the bucket. Don't clean it with your hands. Okay, I'm gonna compress the wall so it's nice and smooth. Okay, so the rim of this one is about the width that I want the rim to be, but this shape is wrong. I want this shape to actually go out like this. So if you want the shape to go out like this, you don't start at the top and move. You don't want to flare it. You want to push everything out underneath the rim. So do that. And slow my wheel down just a little bit here. Okay, this is kind of a fun part, just like flaring the rim. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold on, I kind of hold on to the skinny end of the kidney rib. I'm gonna hold on to the rim, and my thumb is kind of on the rim, kind of keeping it where it's supposed to be. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually just gonna kind of pull back. My support, you know, I always keep my hands connected. I'm gonna pull back with this rib and bring that shape out. Okay. Now I'm gonna flip it around again so that I'm holding onto this rib. My fingers are out of the way, and then I'm gonna connect my two hands together, and then basically I just kind of push it down on the inside, and I use the shape of the rib to shape the inside of the bowl. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention is when you're throwing a bowl, you shape the inside and you're gonna trim the outside. So whatever you do, just pay attention to that interior shape, at least the bottom half, you know, from here down, it's all interior shape. We're gonna flip it over and we're gonna trim the exterior so that the exterior looks nice. Just don't even look at the bottom of the bowl down here. Like it's not important right now. The inside is it's what's inside that counts, right? Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the top half of the exterior of this bowl. I'm just kind of finish shaping that. Okay, I could do that. I could even use this little corner, like these little corners of this rib. I could even use that to kind of define the rim a little bit, but I kind of like the roundness of these bowls. Okay, so I'm just shaping the upper part of that. I'll take the water out of here so I can see what the interior shape looks like. I think it looks fine. Oh yeah, before I take it off of here, just get my chamois. The way that I'm holding my chamois to do the rim is I hold it between I'll do it under the camera here. I hold it between my index and middle finger, and then my ring finger and my thumb. And then so that I'm kind of keeping it almost a little bit taut. And then I wrap it around the thing like that. And that just kind of smooths it out. You could also just kind of go like that too, but I feel like I have a little bit more control if I hold it with one hand, and then I can do some shaping if I need to. Let's see how we did here. Let's look at this exterior shape at the top, interior shape at the bottom. I think we're good. Score underneath. Cut it. And then I'm just gonna kind of go around it. If you leave enough clay in the foot, you can do this. If you don't leave any clay down there, if you don't leave any, like, you know, the thickness of the foot, you won't be able to do this. And I'm grabbing around the foot. I'm not trying to really lift the bowl. I'm trying to lift the foot as much as I can. Try not to smash the foot when you do that too, because that'll make it not round and make it rather difficult to center. So that's pretty much it for bowls.